welcome everyone to the D25 Club Success Workshop, Bridging the Gap. And we're so excited to see so many faces here. We have a wonderful lineup of amazing panelists that are going to talk tonight and give us some of their great advice. But first, I would like to start by introducing our wonderful Club Growth Director, Phyllis Christian Daniels. Phyllis, take it away.
Thank you, Jenny. Everybody, let's just applaud each other for being here tonight. I know it's an odd night, but guess what? The calendar was extremely full and we had to literally just pop this in where we could. And I'm learning as I go that every moment counts, whether it's 150,000 people or whether it's 2 people or whether it's 3 people. As long as there's an opportunity for you to impact one life, guess what? We've already done our job. So tonight, I am so excited to bring to you guys the millennials, the ones who have been so faithful at being a part of District 25, the ones who are wanting to make sure that they are trained properly to make sure that they keep this legacy alive. It is my heartfelt desire to be the one to set the tone for them to be able to do that. We have to do it as a team. We can't do it apart. There is no room for confusion. All they want to do is learn what it is that they need to do when we all decide that we want to sit down, some of the older generations. So tonight, if you guys would open up your ears and your hearts to hear what the panelists have to say, just some suggestions that they want, and that we will decide later on what we're going to do to make sure that we have a cohesive district with all generations as we bridge the gap. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Phyllis. And I am excited. I think this is an amazing opportunity for all of us to hear some wonderful feedback and really open our hearts and learn and hear and think about how we can apply some of this to our own clubs and our own situations. So tonight, I would like to first introduce panelist number 1, Clarice Cook. Clarice.
Thank you. My name is Clarice Cook. I am representing Highway to Excellence. That is my club. I have the education levels of a competent communicator under the old system, and then persuasive influence level 2 and motivational strategies number 3. So I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Clarice. Our second panelist, if you would introduce yourself, Brian Sanzone.
As you heard, my name is Brian Sanzone. I'm with +2 Toastmasters. As far as my education level, I am level 5 motivational strategies and just completed the first level of my next path, presentation mastery.
Very nice. And now for panelist number 3, Andrea Payne.
Hi, everyone. My name is Andrea Payne. I am proudly representing the strategic communicators. In terms of educational level, on paper, I am presentation mastery level 5, motivational strategies level 2. But if I go in and complete my pathways, it would also be motivational strategies level 2. But who's counting pathways?
All right, and last but not least, panelist number 4, Janelle Gold.
Thank you. As you heard, it's Janelle, even though it's spelled Janelle. My mama did that. And I always say that joke. You might have heard it before. I'm a member of the Weatherford Club, and I'm on the Visionary Communication Pathways level 2. And I've been a Toastmaster since April of 2023. So only on level 2, but I'm excited to continue to move forward. I'm coming on my 1-year anniversary as a Toastmaster. Thank you. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Well, thank you, panelists. And now we are going to allow each of the panelists to share what they would like to tell the group about their opportunities that they see and give us some feedback on us all bridging the gap. So we'll start again with Clarice.
Thank you so much. I love having this conversation. It's one of the conversations I have been having for almost a year and a half now. And the first thing I love asking whenever I have this conversation is how many people are in the room under the age of 30? We have hands. That's about the response I get most times. And that's why I love having this conversation, is bringing awareness to the fact that there is a need for under 30. We can join at age 18. I was one of the few people who joined at age 18. I have been part of Toastmasters in and around since I was 12, and I feel like it is a really, really vital that we bring in ages 18 to 29, not just 30 and above. There are two things I'm really passionate about when it comes to this topic of bridging the gap. One of them is communication, how to communicate, how to get engaged with the younger generation of Gen Z and millennials. And the other is transferring knowledge. How do we take the things that us as Toastmasters already know, we tried and love it, but getting the information to the next generation in a way that they can understand. Doing the communication element, one thing I found is Toastmasters tends to be pitched as a leadership and public speaking organization, which is awesome. That is exactly what we do. But the thing I've noticed in my generation and the generation below me is that public speaking is a major turnoff, and leadership, they don't always have a full understanding of what that looks like. And so one of the things I enjoy talking about and sharing the idea of is changing the way we pitch Toastmasters to be calling it more of a way to grow your influence. What do we notice when we talk about influencers? They know how to communicate and they know how to lead. It's the same thing we're talking about, just a different choice of words. And so I love getting to encourage fellow Toastmasters in changing the paradigm of how we look at pitching Toastmasters. When we're talking about what we gain from Toastmasters, we tend to talk a lot about being able to be comfortable standing in front of people, being able to share our ideas, being able to network. And those are all true things. And when you're talking to an 18-year-old, networking is a very foreign term. And sharing their ideas, they may not know what that looks like. So I talk about changing the concept of that and really rewording it. It's not about taking what we do and breaking it down and creating something new. It's about changing how we say it to a generation of people who's losing soft skills. Gen Z and millennials live online. They communicate through texts, IMs, and FaceTime and Zoom. The eye contact skills, the being able to speak for themselves, the having the confidence to walk into a room, no matter how old the people are in the room, that is all lost. And it's something that is relevant. It's something that's important. So being able to communicate with them, I see you, you have value, we need you, we want you. That is so vital to getting in new people in the age demographic we're talking about. It's not just, how do you think this will help your career? Recognize not everyone goes to college. Not everyone is on the career path. We've got innovators. We've got people who are breaking the box left and right, who are coming up with new things. And so saying, what can we do to help you accomplish what you want? One of the things I talk about when it comes to this topic is saying, hey, I have valid reasons to not be in Toastmasters. I am a mom of 4, almost 5. I teach American Sign Language, which means I use my hands and not my voice. And I have a lot of things I'm involved in, which are all valid reasons to not be in Toastmasters, yet I choose to stay. Why? One thing I've gained from Toastmasters is the confidence to walk in a room and share my ideas. Doesn't matter who I'm talking to. Being able to articulate myself in a way, knowing I will be heard, seen, and valued. That is what I've gained from Toastmasters at the age of 26. And what could a younger generation accomplish if they felt that? Edge 18, 19, 20, 23, 25, 29. But it requires us being willing to change how we communicate with them. One thing I've noticed when it comes to knowledge of the district is at the club level, I didn't really understand or know who my area directors were. I didn't know who my division directors were. I had no clue who the trio was until I served at a conference. And that was something where understanding who are these people is one thing, but what do they do? I didn't know who they were until I had to be in a district event. The importance of going to district events. What's the benefit of going to a district event? It's not just to have fun and build my education, although that is beneficial. It's being able to say, well, this thing I've noticed, there's only one of me under 30 in the room. I noticed that in the club. but I got to start having conversations with people at a district event, bringing that conversation up and them saying, that's a good point. You should keep talking about that. Having those conversations with people at a higher level outside of my club gave me the confidence to continue to talk about that. But I didn't know the importance and value of a district event just by hearing we should go to a district event. I learned what the importance of banners were by asking questions, but I think it's important that as we bring in a new generation who didn't grow up with Lions Club and Rotary Club, who don't understand the importance of banners and ribbons, to be willing to openly talk about these things. Why is it important that we do these? Why is it important that we earn ribbons? Why do we earn a banner? Why do we show our banner off? It's club pride, but we don't openly talk about it all the time. What is a DTM? We hear it all the time, but do we know what it is? How to achieve it? The importance of it, the value of it. Being willing to break it down in simple terms and share it to a generation so they get a buy-in, not just because that's what everybody does, but because it's benefit to them, I think is really important. So those are some of the things I'm really passionate about talking about, is the communication shift that has to happen when engaging with 18 to 29-year-olds, but also being willing to openly share information from generation to generation so that those trusted, tried and true values, especially of District 25, not just of Toastmasters as a whole, is maintained long-term. Because if we don't openly share them and no one takes time to ask, they will be lost so quickly. They will be undervalued, they will be undersold, they won't continue past the group that's currently running them. So those are the things that I'm really passionate about sharing. Thank you.
Clarice, that was wonderful. I heard some things that I haven't heard before. I thank you so much for sharing your heart. So good, so good. Okay, now we're going to hear from Brian. Panelist number 2, take it away.
Good evening, everyone. How many of you all have built a rocket launcher before? Probably nobody. Recently, I played this new game, which is very polarizing game, polarizing in the sense that either people really, really love it or they really, really hate it. Regardless, it has taught a very important lesson for aspiring teachers, coaches, and mentors. Before we get fully into the nitty-gritty, let's start with a very simple example that everyone can relate to. Who wants to be a millionaire? Get a show of hands. Yes. Now, what if I said, within a year, try to become a millionaire? Just try to make some money, try to become a millionaire. I'm a jerk. So at the end of that year, which you probably aren't a millionaire yet, I say, what? Why haven't you become a millionaire yet? All you have to do is make some money. Not good teaching. Sounds about right. What's the problem here is choice paralysis, which can also be called decision paralysis or decision fatigue. There are different names for it, in which you give a person way more information that can possibly be understood. Because of infinite possible options, you get choice paralysis. How about at the beginning of that year, we're not a jerk, so we give them the idea, hey, open up a lemonade stand. They're still probably not going to do it. However, what we have done is given them an input, something to start with. They might instead say, no, I'll open up an Etsy shop or something. All what we have at least done is given them an anchor point to work around for them to find an idea, a starting point. That way they can make that first step. Because once you make that first step, you can make that second step and so on. Because the only way you can get to that end goal is by starting that first step, the input, as we were mentioning. Now let's go on. We want to make that rocket launcher, right? Let's say you're a person who crafts spears. Again, the jerk comes in and says, ha, spear, why don't you make a rocket launcher instead? Same situation as earlier, right? Choice paralysis. Infinite possibilities of not being able to decide how to get there. How about instead, let's try to build a halberd. Very similar in design. You still have to get the stick with the spear point. They just have to add a little axe head with a little hook at the end. Very similar, one simple extra step. Then maybe they get a little risky. Let's try maybe a crossbow, bolts. Then eventually a ballista and large ballista bolts because it's just a larger version of a crossbow. Step-by-step process until eventually they say, let's try that rocket launcher now. Step-by-step process, starting with inputs. That is something that a lot of us have a problem with when we're trying to teach our youth, is we just say, oh, just get to the end goal. It's not that hard. When we have to put ourselves in their position, see where they're at, and say, hey, try this one thing that's just a little bit different from what you're already doing. That way you can get that step-by-step process of growth, is ultimately in order to create them to be their best selves. Now I want to do a screen share real quick on these two images just to get a little visual representation for everyone. We go ahead and maximize those, then I will share screen. There we go. Does everybody see that image? Does that look like that's easy to follow? That's what we're trying to do to our youth right now when we're not trying to focus on inputs. What was this again? Choice paralysis. Too many possibilities, too much overwhelming information. Now let's try this other image. Does that look a lot easier to follow? Only a few possible options, something to start with. Input with relation to the skill level. That's all I have.
Thank you, Brian. That was fascinating. I love it. Choice paralysis and start where they're at. That's wonderful. Okay, we're going on to our third panelist, Andrea Payne.
Thank you, Jenny, and hi, everyone. I am going to ask you for a quick favor. I'm going to ask each of you to put down one thing that you love about this district in the chat. Just drop it in the chat and we can review it later. Or one word that comes to mind when you think of District 25. Helpful, supportive, community, family. So I'm just going to drop a little secret. I'm probably going to tell myself. I see the district director, he is here, the PQD, the club growth director. I have been to 4 different districts. And in those 4 different districts, District 25 has been mentioned as a leader in education, a leader in excellence. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they're Toastmaster famous. But when I was thinking about this topic and asking about it, the one word that came to my mind is that we are a leader. And one of the most amazing things that I love about this district is that we are self-aware. We recognize our strengths, we recognize our weaknesses, or I'm not going to say weaknesses, I'm going to say areas of opportunities. The fact that we're even having this conversation about youth shows that we have identified an area of improvement, which includes getting the youth involved. And when I was thinking about this topic, one of the ones that stuck out to me and that means the most is the transfer of knowledge. We do a great job of talking about the youth. We do a good job of talking for the youth, but how many of you have actually talked to Gen Zers and millennials? Ooh, that's not everybody. Which proves my point. We have a lot of secondary research. We have these initiatives that we think they would like. We have concepts of how we think they are, but unless we start getting better at talking to these people, getting primary research, talking to the youth, asking them, what do you value? And tailoring our initiatives and solutions to mirror those values. I personally got to sit down with 64 youth in a Toastmasters club ages 18 to 26. And what I thought they cared about, my perception of them and their reality was completely different. Many of them didn't join Toastmasters because they thought it was a retirement club. And I was like, whoa, let's change the narrative. But what I value, being someone that's already in my career and in management, is different from what they value. I don't know if you guys know this, but a lot of them are scared. They are afraid of the economy. They are afraid of job security. And most importantly, they're afraid that they aren't being properly heard. A few of them had bad experiences, and I can speak for myself. When I first joined Toastmasters, 9 District 25, I was told how to think, what to think. They tried to put this ray of sunshine into a box. I burned the box, of course, in true Andrea fashion, but it was discouraging, and everyone is not me. And unfortunately, there are a lot of youth out there who get discouraged because we try to put them in a box that is constructed by our own values and our own beliefs without hearing them out. We need to find some way to not only bridge the gap, but show that learning is circular. Yes, we can pass down traditions, we can pass down lessons, but when is the last time you asked a youth, hey, can you teach me? Or show me how to do that? Or would you mind leading this educational session? You guys, these youth are brilliant. And I say we are brilliant because we're all young at heart, but everybody has value, and you can't show that value if you're always preaching from the pulpit or always playing the role of teacher. Sometimes we have to humble ourselves and play the role of student and give them spaces to create. I know that Toastmasters has specific branding, but is there an opportunity that we can give them to craft Toastmasters in their own image that allows all members to learn, but gives them a place to feel heard? Case in point, I did a contest with a group of 20-year-olds, and they did not like the minute of silence. They were told that they could not speak. So what they did instead was they played Mr. Bean mime videos through the minute of silence. And yes, it was questioned, but Toastmasters International thought it was funny and allowed us to do it. And they said it was pushing the envelope. It was rated one of the best contests in that district. And now they think that I'm one of them and I get invited out. But that something that small allowed them to see that they had a place in there. So most importantly, we have to hear them and we have to make sure they're represented. When I go to these district events, I love them, love them, love them, love them. But there have been a few that I've gone to where they're playing Jesse's Girl or Celebrate Good Times Come On. And as much as I know we all love those songs, it's something as simple as allowing them a place in the music selection. I'm not trying to call anyone out, it's the truth. Playing something that they would like. I'm sure there's a Toastmaster appropriate Beyonce song or someone of their age group that they could have, and allowing them to lead one of the educational sessions. When is the last time we actually heard from them, learned from them? I don't see any hands. If you have not learned anything from the youth, it's not because they have nothing to teach us. It's because they haven't been given the opportunity to show us. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. That was really good. I think there were a lot of thought-provoking ideas in there. And, I didn't even think about the music, but burn that box. I love it. Okay. Next, we have our last but not least panelist, Janelle Gold. Janelle.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. I have a personal motivation for bridging the gap, personal and professional, in fact. For work, I have to roll out software packages and grow customer adoption, expansion. And this does translate to my role as VP of Membership in Weatherford. But basically what I'm trying to do is teach people or gain value for every single member, for every single customer. And I do think this is important in our role here at Toastmasters, how to create value for our youth. First, we got to get them in the club. In my personal life, like many of us, we have Gen Zers, AKA Zoomers, through boomers in our families, right? And I've seen the challenges that occur mostly due to lack of communication. So I know we're supposed to talk about one of three things during this panel, but it's hard to speak about one without touching on all three. I'm actually going to, before I get to the one I'm going to focus on, I'm letting you know that this is my personal reason also extends to my nieces, my nephews, my cousins who are Zoomers, and then having boomers, also my family. And newsflash, I'm at the younger age of Gen Z. I'm not actually a Zoomer, but or a millennial, but my husband is a older stage millennial. So we span all the ranges. And what I'm going to talk about mostly tonight is the use of technology. That is one of the topics that Ms. Phyllis gave us. And again, it's very hard not to talk about all of the topics without when you're talking about how to engage the youth. According to a Forbes article called Understanding the Differences in Mobile app use across generations. This is from 2022, so it's a little dated. Gen Zers account for 40% of mobile users, so that's gone up because it's now 2024. And they're the biggest consumers of video content, and that was back then. A report from a thing called Awesomeness that Forbes was using, they found that 71% of Gen Zers go to YouTube for long-form content. So long-form content is a term that we use all the time in the software space. It's for learning. So Gen Zers go to YouTube for learning. And 75% back then in 2022 were using Snapchat to connect with their peers. Now, I don't use Snapchat, I use YouTube, so I can identify with that because I go there for long form content and learning as well, but I'm not actually using it as a marketing piece. And I know from experience that my cousins, my niece, my nephews, they mostly use text as a favor to us. They don't really want to pick up the phone and call people. And something we talk about all the time in our Weatherford Club is we're going to meet you where you are. Whatever educational level you're at, we're meeting you where you are. We're here to help you. And that's the same mentality we have to use when we're communicating with Gen Zers. Meet them where they are. If they learn on YouTube, I would like for us to find a way to teach them on YouTube. I understand we're using some pathways, but I don't know how we can maybe promote on YouTube and then link to our pathways. Just some ideas. Do we have an counter? Mark me for that. From my experience, Gen Z it's not that, well, first of all, backtrack. It's not Gen Z's fault that they were raised in a digital age with all these ways to communicate. Some of us were raised in an age where we got our news from the radio only. And then we got our news from the TV. And then we got we got phone calls from our family. Remember those long distance phone calls? Like you have to talk really fast and somebody was going to pay for it. That doesn't happen anymore. We have so many ways to communicate. And I feel like it's our challenge to meet Gen Zers where they are. And from my experience, again, the gap is due to lack of communication because of all these modes of communication. One of the things that we can benefit from, no matter our age group, is learning new skills. And similarly to what Andrea said, we can ask them to mentor us, to teach us how to use these modes of technology and modes of communication that we don't know how to use. And that is another way to help them be heard. They can teach us these things that we're trying to solve. Newsflash. And we all know that as we age, learning stimulates our brains, which is important. And I know I'm speaking to the choir because y'all are here. But first and foremost, we need to get curious. And this kind of, again, touches on mentorship. We can ask, who better to mentor us about Gen Z than an actual Zoomer? They know more about themselves than we can, just like Andrea said, our perception of them and their perception of and their reality are two different things. So again, they can teach us how to use the technology, but when we're being curious and saying, hey, can you teach me to use YouTube or Snapchat or other modes of communication? Let's also ask them about their views about the world, about their views on career, on health, on mental health. Because if we don't know the answers to those questions, we still can't market to them. So as they're mentoring us, we need to find out what matters to them. So get curious. My solution to bridging the gap overall, I challenge each and every one of us, myself included, to get curious. And we start with the members in our family or the 18-year-old or 20-year-old across the street and ask them to be heard, ask them to teach us a new technology. And that is how we start building those partnerships. Maybe now they'd be interested. Now you can find a way to invite them to Toastmasters. That was not part of my original speech, but asking them to mentor us and asking them what they care about. And I want you to remember, be patient and be open-minded. We are going to have to use different technology. And I mentioned not just phone calls, but there will be communication breakdowns because of the various modes of communication. Understand that we don't all learn or consume information the same way. So the way I learn to take notes and make note cards and do certain things, Zoomers don't think that way. And I can't even begin to imagine how they think unless I start making those relationships with them. Remember that they are smart and they're growing, but they haven't had as much time as some of us to learn to be organized, to learn to communicate. So again, be patient because there will be times when we're going to have to repeat ourselves. They will have to repeat themselves too. When they teach me how to use a new technology, I'm going to have a lot of questions over and over. So it's a two-way street. And as we workshop today, let's all think about those Zoomers in our lives, in our family, across the street, at Chick-fil-A, wherever you go. Those kids are very talkative. So let's make it a point to not dismiss them simply because we don't understand them, can't communicate with them. Let's start bridging the gap with the Zoomers in our lives, one Zoomer at a time. Thank you. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Janelle. That is wonderful. Get curious. I work in healthcare and I work with a lot of young nurses. We have a mentorship program that I'm part of with the young nurses coming on board. I've learned a lot today, and to think about when I'm mentoring them and meeting them where they are. Okay, so now we've heard from our 4 panelists, and now I would like to introduce the amazing Sally Jett, who I believe is going to help us with some questions and discussion. Sally.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Thank you to our panelists today for being here. I'm going to kick off this Q&A session with a few questions of my own. My first question is for Clarice. Clarice, in your presentation, you mentioned the benefits you received by being on an event committee for one of our district events. Can you think of some ways where we could form that question to our Gen Zs and millennials to consider being on a committee that is for one of our district events that might entice them to want to do that?
Sally, Clarice, she got kicked out and we're trying to get her back in. Can you go?
Oh,
to
I
her?
didn't realize. Okay. Well, then I'm going to keep going. I have my next question is for Brian. Brian, thank you so much for your presentation. When you said, have you ever built a rocket launcher before, you got our attention. Some of us have indeed done that in 5th grade, and some of us may not have. It was fun and we loved it. I love when you talked about having choice paralysis and decision fatigue. I actually think decision fatigue happens across all generations. And I think it's happening right now post-pandemic, more so than we've ever experienced it before. And I think that is generation wide. That is what's happening with all 5 generations in existence right now. One of the things that you talked about was limiting how we present information. So we're presenting it in small doses. As that relates to Toastmasters and as our new members come in for our younger generations, can you think of something specific that we could do in our mentorship with them that would allow us to do that would allow us to present things in small doses?
I think simply just getting to introduce themselves, especially if you can get them to tell you how something that they really like to do functions, as people like to tell you how things work that they're working on, especially. So just simply getting to know them is the first step to get them to tell about themselves, and just actively. It's a simple, small step.
Thank you, Brian. What I heard you say was putting that relationship first, and the information is coming behind the relationship. I really like what you said there. This next question is for Andrea. Andrea, your key phrase for your presentation today was learning is circular. And I'm going to be authentic very, very, very well here, because that kind of shook me today. As a mom of a Gen Zer and as a mom of the tablet generation, I forgot that I'm supposed to be doing that, and I'm supposed to be checking in with them. And now how it can relate to Toastmasters when we're trying to build a legacy. There are several folks in this particular audience who are legacy minded, who work very, very hard for our district to make sure that the light and the torches are carried forward. How can we continue, specifically, how can we continue to present our district events, and the things that we're doing in Toastmasters in a way that would allow for that information to be exchanged in a circular way?
Wow. Thank you, Sally, for that question. The first thing that I think we have to do is first keep the district's mantra at the forefront. When you say share your sunshine, that replicates in everything we do, starting with the words. I think Clarice mentioned changing the verbiage. One thing that I noticed that is preventing us from having a circular knowledge exchange is that we use offensive language. I learned this the hard way. Old is offensive, naive is offensive, immature is offensive. Even that's the way we've always done it. That's offensive, especially to younger people, saying your opinion doesn't matter. So instead of saying old or young or naive, you guys are going to have to help me with this. We have to change that into a more positive light and let them know, use more inclusive language. Hey, this is how we did it in the past. Here is why. What suggestions do you have? Let them and why do you have that? Listen to it, take in that feedback, and actually implement at least one thing that was suggested. I think in weddings, they say something old and something new. We can take that and implement that here. Hold on to the traditions, but start slowly integrating a new suggestion, a new feedback, and see how it works. And you will see that they buy, the younger generation or Gen Z or millennials, whatever you want to call it, they buy in because they feel like they're a part of it. And then the seasoned or more experienced Toastmasters also get to learn, and they get that appreciation that, hey, I passed this on and I learned, and vice versa. So it's like we did this and we did it together. We not only shared our sunshine, but we accomplished an event that hasn't been done before or at this magnitude.
Thank you so much, Andrea. I was taking notes throughout your presentation, and I have to say that just now when you said not only asking for their input, but asking why they suggested that, and of course, in a very respectful way, not why would you say that, but more, wow, I'm interested in that line of thinking. Tell me more. So thank you so much for starting this conversation. My next question is for you, Janelle. Thank you so much for your presentation tonight. As a newer Toastmaster, we definitely value your feedback as the fact that you're in your first year. And I love your perspective. One of the things that made me chuckle a little bit was that you said our younger generations use text as a favor to us. And I totally agree. And I actually think that it's not just text that they use as a favor to us. I think they're using many platforms as a favor to us. And that really hit home for me. One of the other things you said, Janelle, was providing long form content on platforms such as YouTube, which is where they are. We're supposed to meet them where they are. That was one of the key phrases you said. Can you suggest some things that we might be able to upload to our club YouTube channels that might entice our younger generations when they're on YouTube?
Yeah, so off the top of my head, great question, by the way. Off the top of my head, I have seen other clubs post other people's speeches, and frankly, that is kind of scary to me. But I do believe that when people see that other people are doing a thing and it's hard, maybe we can partner in a way where the people that do want to or give permission to be recorded, it doesn't necessarily have to be all District 25 stuff, but kind of partner with other Toastmasters clubs to share stuff on YouTube. There is one person who I follow who's a Toastmaster in London, and he has super great suggestions about how you can use this technology inside your club meeting. And here's what I use. And he gives us the actual microphone, the lights, the whatever. So I think even things like that could be useful, that says these are things that you can do inside your club to increase membership, or not membership, but increase value for your club. It doesn't have to be just, it could be things related to Toastmasters, but not where it's specifically about pathways or learning in that way. But I think that would be a good hook to say, hey, we're doing stuff on YouTube. This is a great way a great source of information. Here's you Toastmasters from all over the world, not just District 25. And look at all the amazing things they're doing. Oh, by the way, here's a link to Pathways.
I love it. Thank you so much, Janelle. Clarissa, I want to come back to you. We lost you earlier, so I want to ask you this question. You mentioned the benefits you received from being on a district event committee. How would you suggest that we go about enticing our fellow club members to be more involved in our district events, especially in becoming part of a committee for things such as a district event or say a TLI season or all the things that we're doing? Because you did mention all the benefits you received. How can we then carry that over to entice our younger generation to get more involved?
Great question. I think the best way is highlighting the things they're good at. So having someone who says, man, you are so, for example, with me, I love doing like games. So the reason I was on the conference team, aside from the fact that my mom was running the conference that year, so I had vested interest, was also she found something that I was passionate about. I love playing games, and giving me the freedom, saying like, you're really good at this. I think you'd be really good at this. Could you help us here? Same with TLIs. I've been able to have the pleasure of serving as a secretary trainer. And that was because someone came to me and said, hey, I've seen you in this role in the club level. You're really good at this. Could you train other people? And so this element of, it wasn't, we need people. Can you please help? Yes, but it was very specific in, I see you excelling in this. Can you take it up a notch? Can you share that expertise with someone else? Which then built confidence in me to be willing to try something new. That's how I ended up on district leadership, was the element of saying, hey, you are skilled at taking notes. I want you to take notes on a higher level. I will be here to help you. You will have a team to support you no matter what comes, but you can do this. You're good at this. Can you come help me? And so it's this element of not, we need people, I'm desperate. It's I see you, you've got qualifications, whether I believed in myself or not, having someone else say, I believe in you, let's try this, and being willing to take the plunge, but also knowing at the end of the day that you're willing to accept a no. That the ability to say and not feel guilty for saying no is so powerful. And it can feel sometimes when you're in an environment, you feel pressured, you have to say yes. And so letting them know you have full reign to say no, that's not going to reflect how we view you. It does not mean we're going to stop asking you questions. We're not going to stop inviting you to things. It's that holding the tension of both. Recognizing what someone can do, being willing to call them out in their strengths and encourage them to step into something new, while simultaneously saying, I am not going to pressure you and I respect your no the first time you give it, without any explanation as to why your no is there.
Excellent answer. Thank you so much, Clarice. I'm now going to open up the floor to questions from the audience. If you would use your raised hand function in Zoom, and if you are not able to, if you would get my attention in the chat through a private message, you can either message me the question or just let me know that you have a question for one of the panelists. I want to give a summary of what each panelist had to say today, so we know which panelist to direct your question to. Clarice talked to us about two elements today of the communication shift that we need to consider and the transferring of knowledge. Brian talked to us about making sure that we are giving information in small doses because of decision fatigue. Andrea talked to us about the fact that learning is circular, that we are to be learning from one another, even though we're from different generations. And Janelle talked to us about going to where the younger generations are and talking in the language that will appeal to them so that we can entice them to be a Toastmaster. So who would like to start with a question that they might have for one of our panelists? And Janelle, I see your chat message there. No means, okay, no is a complete sentence. I love that. That was, I'm assuming that was in reference to what Clarice was saying. Give them the grace to say no if they need to say no in your ask. Questions?
I can add to something that might help spark more questions or conversation.
I think
One
Denise
thing
has her-
that I'm sorry, I didn't raise my hand. Somebody else talking?
No, go ahead, Janelle.
Okay. One thing that Clarice had mentioned in the past, in a past TLI session is that, and I've saw it in my research too, is that Gen Zers are wanting to be heard, which you said, Clarice, and they have a different view about work and work ethic. And some of the things that I'm finding is that there's a big disconnect in the workplace where maybe the leadership is more on the boomer side, and the Gen Z generation is like, they don't understand what I'm looking for. Some of the things that are important to them are health, mental health, the ability to break out of boxes and labels. And so those are just some things that we need to continue to be open-minded to when thinking about Gen Z, and asking, again, just reiterating what I said earlier, what matters to them in order for us to be able to start speaking their language.
Thank you so much, Janelle. That's such a good point. Melinda has her hand up. Melinda, ask your question.
Thank you very much. And all the presentations were great. Thank you so much for the information. I am a part, excuse me, of COG Toastmasters, North Central Texas Council of Governments. And I have not attended many conference events, but would like to get more involved now that I have a little more time. But what I wanted to talk about, and Janelle actually mentioned that in the workplace, there is some differences. But for me and where I work, all of my employees are over 50. So we don't really work with younger individuals in that department. And I don't really go where younger individuals are. So it is hard for me to see learning from them, which I know is possible. But the other thing that you mentioned was they have a different work ethic. I just talked to my daughter today, and she said, I said, well, I was going to take a mental health day. And she was like, yeah, you need those. And I said, well, no, I have a lot of work to do. I need to get it done. She was like, oh, I take one whenever I need to. So, they have a different take on that. So my thing is, yeah, how do we let them know this is important stuff? This will help you later on. And some of the information that was provided in the presentations is good. But for me, where can I go? I don't get out much. I just don't. I have a compromised immune system, so I don't get out much. And so it's hard for me to understand their rationale. That's just me.
Melinda, are you part of any other Toastmasters clubs, or just your workplace Toastmasters?
Just the workplace, and I have looked into visiting other clubs in the area that I live in.
One thing that we have here in District 25 is the Nemelita incentive, and that is an incentive for all of us to visit other clubs. If you visit 7 clubs in the district and 2 clubs outside the district, you can achieve that incentive. It's a really beautiful incentive that was started several years ago with our then trio. And I encourage you, Melinda, to reach out and come visit one of our clubs. You never know who you're going to get. You may go into a club that is similar to your workplace club, but you also might go into a club with some younger folks in there who happen to be giving presentations. You never know who you're going to meet that day. And I understand about, you don't want to get too far out of the house because of health reasons and all that good stuff. But it might just take you taking that first step. That was scary for me when I first did my first club visit for the first year Nemelita incentive. That was so scary to walk into yet another room that I was the new person in, but I encourage you to do that. And now that we know you a little bit, Melinda, I might just be in touch with you and put you in touch with some folks just to branch out a little bit if you're willing to do that.
I'd be willing to listen.
Okay.
Can I
But yes,
throw in an
I
add-on?
found out about that. I think it was the last month. I attended a conference and they talked about the Emelita
Yes.
challenge.
And you can
Yes.
attend virtually,
Right.
so you
right.
don't have to leave the comforts of your home or your pajamas. Really, you can attend virtually. Let's see, Donna Young, you have a question.
Here we go. Yeah, I'm wondering what's the cold call? You know, we get emails from Toastmasters because somebody is looking for a club. And it is somebody young. So they're not searching the internet, Toastmasters, where's a club near me? For some reason, I get those. And then it's like, okay, I send them an email and I said, you can call or text me. And then I text them and, you know, they're never going to show up unless I talk to them. So I guess I text and I'm still rude and I call. But the thing is, I think the first thing I ask is, what are you looking for? What do you need? Why do you think, you know, where are you coming from? And I only talk about what they talk about. But I don't know, it sounds like I've just broken the rules. So is there, I guess we ask Clarice, what, you know, what do you think? You know, I mean, we have to, they do reach out to us. We have to connect. We have to make that first step, the cold call. How do we handle it? You know?
That's a great question. So I have a few ideas. Number one, we do have a wonderful youth leadership program that is being run in the district. The youth leadership program, for those who don't know, is actually targeting students under 18. So if we're talking youth, they are not eligible to be members of clubs yet. Being able to get the general idea of young, like youth leadership and Golden Gavel, they are able to come in and engage in Toastmasters in a short form, couple like 4 to 6 weeks, and then they're done. What I'm seeing is that we make those connections at that age, talking between elementary, junior, and high school, but then we don't go back. Why don't we go back? We could go back. We've already made those connections with all of these different students who participated. We live in a state where there are people who compete in public speaking and debate, homeschool speech and debate. They compete at ULI competitions. They know how to give speeches. That is a target audience. We are invited to go judge for these competitions for kids under 18. That's where I would think the first step would be is these are kids who've already expressed an interest in public speaking to some degree, who are in youth leadership programs around the state. That those are the perfect people ripe for us, but they can't participate in those programs past 18. But then they could come into our program at 18. And so being able to go intentionally step out of our comfort zone, give a couple hours or a couple days to go participate in their events, get to talk to them one-on-one. Because I don't know about you, but getting a DM in my inbox and Instagram saying, hey, I saw that you did da-da-da-da-da. Would you love to learn about Toastmasters? Sketchy, and I'm not going to reply. So, being able to make those connections in person, yes, once you have the initial connection, then following them on Instagram or social media helps you learn more about them. But those initial connections in person are so vital. Just as much as they're vital in the past, they're vital now too. And so being willing to go engage where they're at, meeting them, not having them come to us, and then being able to say, hey, once you're done here, we've got something that can transition you. That's the first part. When you've got people who aren't in a public speaking forum or have not done any kind of leadership thing, then it's going into like career centers, colleges, workplaces where there are young people. It could be a coffee shop. It could be a small group. And being able to say, hey guys, what are you wanting to work towards? Just like Brian was saying about building the rocket, it's like, what are you working towards? Could listening to what they want to do, could we find a way we could help them achieve their goal? And if we find a way to achieve their goal, then they have to buy in and say, oh, well, they'll be able to help me. And so it's this element of, well, I want to be able to write this book, or I want to be able to go talk to people about this product I'm working on or this thing I'm working on selling. Well, we have people. We have people who write, we have people who work in corporate jobs, we have people who are innovators. We have a large community of people in a large demographic that is still accessible to them, even if the public speaking isn't the goal. Toastmasters still helps aid in filling some of those gaps. So that's where I would say we start, is the people we know are into public speaking and leadership, go get them. They're right there. You just haven't taken the time to do it. And the people who we aren't sure about, be willing to step out of the comfort zone and say, hey, what are you working towards? How can we help? And being able to really tailor what we have for them without it being well, we do public speaking and leadership. It's, we can help you. We have people in our district who can come help you with this, whatever you're running on doing.
Very good. Thank you so much, Clarice. I have a question in the chat, and then Janelle, I'll get to you. This question is for Andrea, and this question is, learning is universal, but each generation is different in its interests, habits, and learning activities. How can we tailor our message to fit the generational narrative and make it attractive for them? Good question, and that's from Najaf.
Thank you, Najaf. So how can we tailor? Again, there we are, trying to speak for people. I don't think we do anything. I think first of all, we have to be authentic and we have to be transparent. We introduce them into our world and we let them form their own interpretation or take what they need from it. Perfect example, my dad is a boomer. We have nothing in common, that I thought. But he invited me on a fishing trip. Didn't tell me what to expect, what to think. I won't go again, but that's a different story. But throughout the process, I formed my own definition of who he was and what tranquility looked like. I got to form my own opinions of my dad, something that I would have never have known if I hadn't went and experienced that for myself. I hear all the time about the type of man he is, about the type of worker he is, but seeing him in his element allowed me to take the pieces I needed to form my own interpretation. And while that's a personal example, if you think about it, the same holds true with Toastmasters. Show them who you are, let them take what they need to better themselves, because they're not going to need all you have to show them, and allow them to show you who they are, and you take what you need to make it better and come together on the things that you need to come together on, and take what you need to better yourself. But most importantly, allow them to tailor it, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Andrea. Janelle, yes, you are up next.
Yes, I actually just wanted to touch a little bit on Melinda's question and also on what Miss Donna said. Melinda, let's start with our family, the people we know, to start understanding and having conversations with Gen Z. And Miss Donna, you said, like, you pick up the phone, you do all those things. I think that's great. And one of the things that I'm talking to Miss Donna about, and I've created a survey. So what I think would be important in our club is, once we get a visitor or a member, and my survey will ask this, how best do you prefer to communicate? Do you want a text, an email, a phone call, an Instagram message? Do you want me to tag you on YouTube? I don't know. Tell me all the ways, because again, everybody communicates and learns differently. And if I get another email, I'll probably forget. But if I read a text and I can't mark it unread because my Google Pixel doesn't allow me to do that yet, I will forget that too. So just as an example, we communicate in different ways and we organize in different ways. So asking our members, Zoomers to Boomers, how they best prefer to communicate is a good start as well.
Thank you so much for that, Janelle. That's such good insight. Someone told me that Denise had a question. Denise, did your question get answered, or did you still want to ask it?
My question is, I have young kids, so I'm challenged all the time to be younger than I would be otherwise. So my youngest is 16 and my oldest is 26. So I've got them all right there in that space. And I love to learn. And I find that when I make space for my kids to share what's going on with them, with me, I am challenged, right? By their thinking, by their ideas. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, I'm pushed, and I know that it would be very easy for me to just be comfortable with where I am, and not push in that way to grow. So my question is, how would we bring that younger generation in when how do we put together a plan to invite and encourage and make space for the younger generation to come in when just my natural way of conducting myself is sometimes very incongruent with where they are, who they are, what they've got going on. So and that I find that to be the case, even though I've got kids that age.
Thank you, Denise. One of the things that popped into my mind, Denise, was this is going to have to be a marketing restructure for our clubs. And it's going to take some of those traditional things that we've always used to market our clubs, and we're going to have to rethink that. And it's going to start probably with your club officer team. And it starts here. This is why Phyllis had us be here for this particular topic that she and all the panelists are passionate about. And it starts here, and then we get to take this to our club officer teams, and we start these conversations. And like Clarice is probably going to echo what I'm about to say, is the verbiage that we use in our marketing campaigns has got to change. And it's got to say things that would entice them, whether they're in their early to mid-career, or whether they are college kids, or just trying to find their way out of college. So it's going to have to take conversations like these, and they may be hard conversations, but we're doing it. We're all here. We all showed up tonight knowing full well what the topic was going to be. And we're listening, and I think it starts with listening. Clarice, tell me where I'm wrong.
I don't have anything to say that's wrong. I have things to add. You're right on the money. One thing that I would add to that is we have to have empathy. It's really easy to say this generation has it so easy. They can sit there and look up anything they want on any time, at any moment, and they have information access. I had it way harder. They need to suck it up and just deal. That is such a damaging mentality to have, because then you immediately have labeled, judged, and juried them and who they are. They have things, me and my generation have access to things that generations before us have never had access to. And our challenges and struggles are real. And so being able to say, I see that you're struggling. I see that it's hard. Being willing to take the frustration that rises up in us, and that like justification of I had it harder, and saying I'm going to choose to put that aside because I care more about this person and what they're going through, and I want to help them, over being right. I teach students ages 14 to 19, 18, and I sit there and there are things that they're doing and they're struggling with, and I'm like, how are you struggling with this? This is intuitive to me. And I'm hitting that now where I'm like, what do you mean you don't know how to do that? And I'm having to actively say, this is what this generation is struggling with. This is where their strengths are. I'm going to meet them where it's hard and help them learn. And I'm going to praise them on the things they do well, instead of getting frustrated that what they're struggling with, I had no struggle with. It's really easy to stay on the high horse and say, we've got it. We know how to do this. Nothing needs to change. But that takes away the empathy and the care for each generation and their unique struggles. And what we wanted
as a young person, regardless, and really what we want now is to be seen and recognized, to be validated and have empathy towards us and our struggles. We need to be willing to extend that to the next group below us as well, saying, we see you, your struggle's real, hard is okay, we can do hard, we'll do it together, versus saying, I cannot relate. It's okay that you can't relate, you can still empathize without having to relate to the struggle.
Thank you so much, Clarice. Okay. Anyone else have any questions that they would like to ask the panelists? I see Lydisha is with us tonight. Lydisha, did you have a question? Okay, Vanessa.
No, thank you.
Okay, y'all are Toastmasters, so you know I'm probably going to call on you. But Vanessa, Jody, Diana, any questions for our panelists tonight? Okay. All right. On that note, I'm going to hand this meeting back to our Toastmaster, Jenny Riddle. Thank y'all so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Sally. That was a wonderful session. Guys, this has just really opened my eyes tonight. And I thought I knew everything. No, just kidding. But just so much food for thought. I want to personally thank the panelists that came tonight, to opening their heart and sharing truly wonderful, wonderful thoughts and feedback. And I think, and thank you especially to the trio and Phyllis for pulling this together, because I think it starts with just thinking about it, just stopping and thinking about it. And guys, you've given me so much to think about for my home clubs and for the clubs that I'm part of, and really placing myself where maybe the younger generation is. And what I've heard over and over tonight is openly sharing, connecting, being open for new and change, being willing to launch that rocket ship, right, Brian? And making that learning circular, and knowing that text is not the latest and greatest. There may be some other technology out there that we can use and learn from. And so I think this has been a great, great session. Thank you everyone for coming. And I would like to turn it over now to Phyllis to close us out.
Thank you, Jenny. You guys, let's give our panelists a great big applause. My heart is overjoyed right now simply because I am a very empathetic person. I'm a person that sees a lot. I watch and I can literally tell what's going on with a person. And to our visionaries tonight, Clarice, Brian, Andrea, and Janelle, thank you. Thank you for being brave enough to get outside of the box and voice your opinion. And I say that to say this because the overjoyment that's in my heart is that you guys are doing what we should be doing. You guys are taking the floor to say, hey, before we go to the next level, there's some things that we need to do. And in all honesty, it makes me feel kind of bad that we have not done what you guys are trying to do. And when I say we, I'm going to put myself in the seat, even though I do make sure that I support other generations. Clarice, you talked about the communication barrier. Brian, the choice paralysis. And then Andrea, the transfer of knowledge. And then of course, that most important one of all in this day and time is social media. Finding that right channel that we can use to make sure that we make connection with people outside of District 25. You know, I think a lot of people are scared of change for whatever reason. We don't know, but for me, I'm open to it, always open to change. Because as long as we live, there's always room for growth. Now, I can relate to you guys because I have a 23-year-old who went to college. It was not a great experience for her. And guess what? She's learning by example. We talked about the Gen Zs and their work ethics. You know why? Because they're not seeing what we saw when we grew up. They didn't have parents that were there to discipline them like we did. And guess what? That's what we're here for as leaders, to set that example, to be that example, to open our arms to say, hey, baby, guess what? No, you're going to go to work today. Now look at my daughter. Even though college did not work out for her, guess what? She had a plan. And just last week, she started. She said, Mommy, JD, I want to go to beauty school. And guess what? She got enrolled. This is her second week at Ogle here in North Fort Worth. And you know what else she's doing? She's working. She when college didn't work out because of what happened at the university, she came home and she was broken. Guess what? She was depressed. She went to the doctor on her own. And she said, Mommy, I got this. I want to go. And she came back. I was so worried the whole time she was gone, just for like maybe one semester and a half. I couldn't even sleep at night because I was afraid that she would get exposed to a generation or a platform that she wasn't used to. She didn't fit in. She didn't fit in because I put her in the best schools. I was a single mom, but I made sure that she went to schools and that she was being mentored by people who cared about what she was going to be when she grew up. And then guess what? So she worked at Gap. In less than 4 weeks, she became a lead. And then in less than another 6 months, she became a manager. And then when she had this big idea about what she wanted to do, we're talking about a Gen Z, or almost a millennium now. She said, well, Mommy, I'm going to have to give a 2 weeks notice as Gap so that I can find something else. I said, Trinity, you can't do that. And she said, Mommy, just listen to my plan. I took a deep breath. And guess what? She told me, she said, Mommy, I put in all these applications. Everybody's calling back, but there's one that I need. I need one that's going to fit in with what it is that I'm trying to do. And guess what? She got it. You know why? Because she believed in herself. And what I had to do was to believe in her with her. What JD had to do was to believe her as well. And he said, you know what, Trinity, if you do it, I'll pay for it. I'll pay for your schooling. You won't have to do it yourself. And you know what? She got that job. She goes to work. She gets off work. She goes to school. She comes home. And then on the weekend, guess what? She Ubers to make sure that she has money in her pocket. But it's because of what she's seeing in this house. She's seeing that her parents are working and that they're doing things. So guess what? If we can't be the model for these kids, they're going to continuously say, whatever. They're going to continuously disrespect us. But it is up to us to gently, respectfully pull them to the side and say, baby, guess what? You don't have to be that way. When will we have that compassion? When will we share that level of integrity that we're supposed to the generations that's going to keep this legacy alive? We're not trying to take over. If you notice, they didn't talk about nothing that they wanted. They talked about what they could do for the generations to come. What better example could we have been given tonight? My heart is overjoyed. And I hope that we all walk away with something in our hearts to say, you know what, you guys are right. Let's pull a meeting together. Let's make a plan to where we can be able to find a way, not only for youth leadership, but to find a way to where we can bring these 18 plus up to show them what it means to be a leader and not a follower. A lot of them are just following because they haven't been even introduced to leadership. So what are we going to do? That's my question to you tonight. When you leave here tonight, what are you going to do about it? What are we going to do about it as a district? Are we going to continue to be that district that's on all over the world everybody's crazy about? If we are, we need to walk the walk. We need to walk the talk. We need to do what we need to do. Thank you, Janelle. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Brian. And thank you, Clarice, for being brave enough to do what you did. And if nothing else needs to be said, or if anybody else doesn't want to say anything, show of hands if you do. If not, the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.